All right, hello everyone. Just got some music in the background while folks hop on. All right. All right, just give me 1 minute while I get just my tech stuff and my screen all in order. And if you haven't already, please introduce yourself. Just say who you are, where you are, and what you hope to get out of the webinar. Hi, Dee. Dee, where are you at right now? And I think there's a little bit of a delay, so I'll just keep that in mind as we move through the webinar. So I think I actually am speaking a good 30 seconds before you actually hear it. All right. Let's see. Is the webinar showing? Okay, yes. All right. It does look like it is showing. So if it's not playing, just press play and it'll catch up to where I am in the video. And let me get my music paused, as much as I love Neil Diamond. All right. I like to start webinars off with songs just to make it a little bit more fun, take the edge off, you know, things like that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump right in. So welcome everyone to Create a New Dating Paradigm in 2016. I'm really excited to be here, and yeah, I love doing webinars. Excuse me, my voice has been a little hoarse today, so hopefully I'll survive the webinar, but we'll see. Okay. Anyways, so my name is Veronica. If you haven't already, please go ahead and say hello in the chat box and download the workbook if you haven't already, or just open it up onto your Google Drive so you can follow along a little bit better and do some of the exercises. So the thing that I always tell the women that I work with is you can think and think and think, but you've got to, and at the end of the day, do. Otherwise, nothing's going to change and you're not going to see the results that you want to see. So really make sure that you follow through with the exercises. I'm going to go through the exercises a little bit quicker than it would actually take to really do the exercises to the degree in which they deserve. But so you'll want to replay this video, use the workbook, etc. All right, and finally, turn off distractions. So close other browsers, turn off Facebook, turn off dings from your phone. Just allow yourself to have these next 45 to 60 minutes is usually how long my webinars tend to go. But just give yourself this time to really you know, create a new dating paradigm for yourself this year. Cool. So I just want to make sure, can you guys hear me? I think you can, because nothing seems to be not working on my end, but yeah, it does look like my volume is working. So, okay. I can see you guys are a little bit shy in the chat box. That's fine. I totally get it. I was always the shy one and still am the shy one in chat boxes when I attend webinars. But if you haven't already, I see some folks on here. So please go ahead and say hello, tell me who you are, where you are, and what you want to get out of the workshop. Okay, I'm going to go on for a little bit because I know there is a delay, and then I'll click back over. So I want to talk about, I'm just going to give you a little bit of the agenda for the evening so you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you about myself, And then I'm going to go over the power of permission and give you a sweet little gift for you. I love this thing that I'm going to talk about, the power of permission. And then finally, we'll get into the 3 mindset traps that you might have signed up to learn about in this webinar. And then the biggie, the 7 steps to release old boyfriends, beliefs, patterns, whatever you're holding on to that's not serving you. I'm going to show you how to let all of that go. And then finally, I'm going to give you some next steps, because things are probably going to come up and you might have questions, or you might want support, or you might just want to reach out. So I'll give you next steps to make that happen. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. So that is me in the picture. Again, I'm Veronica, and just based on who I've seen sign up for the webinar tonight, a lot of old faces, which I love seeing, because it just tells me that I'm sharing really quality content that you want to keep coming back for again and again. So it's just really great to see that. But there's also a lot of new folks on signing up for this webinar. So I'm really excited that we've got some new faces here. I'm really excited to meet you, chat with you in the chat box or on email later or after this webinar. So hello, and welcome. All right, so a little bit about me and why I do what I do today. So I have been a, what do I say? I was a chronic soulmate seeker, but I was also chronically single. So I like to compare myself, if anyone's familiar with the television show How I Met Your Mother, and it's about this, it's a sitcom about the main character, his name's Ted Mosby, about his epic search for his soulmate, the mother of his children, whatever you want to call it. And I was Ted Mosby for a really long time, except I was way more chronically single. He had a lot more girlfriends than I had boyfriends. And I had no problem attracting guys, but for the life of me, I could not keep them. And at the time, I couldn't figure out why. So my relationships were perpetually a series of mismatched expectations and mismatched communication, or really just a lack of communication is a better way to put it. And so maybe you can relate to that. I know this is a problem that a lot of the women in my community deal with. And so even though I seemed pretty confident on the outside, and this is still, back in time, back in my college years and early to mid 20s, on the outside, I seemed really confident. I had a lot of friends. I did well in school. I had great jobs after college. I was successful. I was attractive, all of these things. But inside, I was pretty much a scared puppy. I had zero confidence. And so to cover that up, I did 2 things. I worked really, really hard in my career, in my academics and getting advanced degrees. And I worked really hard in getting the perfect body. So I was never overweight my entire life, but I always believed that I had 5 pounds to lose. So because of these, factors all working together, I had 2 main patterns, if I'm really being honest with myself and looking at my past relationships. The first pattern is that I was dating emotionally unavailable guys. And now I know that that was because I was also emotionally unavailable. So if you stay around with me and hang out in my community for a while, you will learn and will know very quickly that I believe that whatever you put out into the world or to the universe, whatever you call it, is exactly what you're going to get back. And so I couldn't figure out why I was dating or attracting all of these emotionally unavailable guys, but it was because I was emotionally unavailable, but didn't really realize it. So wanting to be in a relationship is not really the same thing as being emotionally available for a relationship. And the truth is that I was not emotionally available because there was nothing in the inside. Well, it was there. I just didn't know it was there. I didn't know how to access that that deeper part of me to share with a potential partner. So that was one pattern, just constantly attracting emotionally unavailable guys. And the second pattern was I would get into a great relationship. And there's a couple in particular that come to mind that I won't go into details, but if you want to read more about it, I've got a couple podcasts coming out where I go deep into it. And then you can also check out my About page, but not right now because you're tuning into this webinar. But anyways, so I would get into a great relationship with a great guy, but I would always break up with him. And essentially, again, I didn't know at the time, but now I know that I broke up with them because I couldn't let them in physically or emotionally. Emotionally, for the same reason. I didn't know how to give. I wasn't in a place where I could give, because I didn't know how to access that within my own self. And then physically, kind of related back to body image and weight loss and all those types of things. I couldn't let someone in physically because I physically couldn't get comfortable with that. A guy who was maybe skinnier than me, or just, like a tall, thin guy or something, I would just be terrified that he would, maybe see a roll in my belly or accidentally grab a love handle or something like that. And I just couldn't deal. And okay, so we're going to fast forward a few years. This is kind of my reflection of what was going on with me. And I had a job where I did a really, really good job within the organization that I worked for. And I got a lot of national attention for it within the organization. And I was just doing a great job. And I had never felt like that before. And so I became really, for the first time, like really and truly confident. But at the same time, this job was insane. I was working probably 80 to 100 hours a week, and that's not an exaggeration. So I was exhausted. I was depleted. I was not taking care of myself. I just felt like, like I was just horrible. And then that job ended, and I was, putting things back together. I was picking, in terms of my life, like where I was going to move to, because I needed to find a new job, what my new job would be, like what I wanted to do in the world, and what did I wanted to do with my career. And during that time, I was like, well, I just don't want to go back to just being a slave to food or to, perfection, whether it was related to my career or related to how I looked in my personal body image. And at the same time, I had a couple of friends who were vegan. And I'm not a vegan now, and I don't advocate veganism. That's not what this call is about. But one thing that I greatly, greatly admired about them was their relationship with food. They loved eating food. They loved talking about food. They loved thinking about food. They loved writing about food. They took pictures of their food. They did all sorts of things. And and I had never had that type of relationship with food before. So, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I did become vegan temporarily, and it helped me transition into this point in my life where I could feel good. I could feel good about, I was actually taking care of myself. I wasn't punishing myself. I wasn't constantly counting calories. I was essentially, and again, I didn't know this at the time, but I was treating myself the way I wanted to be treated. And it was only 6 months into living like this where I met my current partner. And I was able to meet him because I was finally ready to meet him. And I was able to allow myself to receive the love and the partnership that I got from him. And he finally, I was in a relationship where I was treating myself the way I wanted to be treated, and he was treating me the way I wanted to be treated. Okay. All right. So that's about me. And I just want to share some other, just some other success stories that I've helped people work through. So, I'm getting ahead of myself. Just 1 second. Here we go. I skipped it. All right. So I just want to share a couple of success stories from some of the women that I've worked with. And I've worked with these women in varying capacities. But here's what my client Courtney said from San Diego. So she says, Veronica helped me to date myself, which I help women do all the time. And which I realized was such an important step for me to get back into the dating scene. During one of the dates, so she's referring to one of the dates with herself, I realized the big aha moment. I had been playing the victim card, which kept me out of the dating scene for 2 years. I've been so much happier, and I put way less stress on myself and started putting myself first. So that's awesome. And then the next is my other client, also in California. I finally had the courage to ask for what I needed with the guy I was seeing. I'm usually frustrated dating men and not being, excuse me, on this on the same page as them. He was coming to visit again, and I said, if you're just looking for one thing, I'm not your girl, because I'm looking for more than just hookups in my life. It felt good to open up the conversation, and it turns out he felt the same way. I'm still exploring where this relationship will go, but this just feels so good for me right now. So that's awesome. This is what happens when you begin to treat yourself the way you want to be treated. And you can do that through dating yourself, which maybe I'll talk about a little bit more at the end of this call, but definitely towards the end of this month if you stay in my community. So the next thing before we get started is I want to talk to you a little bit about the power of permission. So if you've been in the self-development world at all or read any type of self-help or self-development books, you probably have seen affirmation statements. So, things like, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am whatever. And while they can be helpful in certain situations, and I do use affirmations sometimes, I find permission to be much more powerful. Because here's the thing. How many times have you been on a date and then wanted to text the guy later to tell him you had a good time, or you want to try to arrange another time to see him, another date, but you're waiting until you're waiting until you talk to your friend about it because you want to get her advice, or you want to maybe run the text by her to see what she thinks. But really, when you do that, you have something in mind, like you're looking for an answer, like you want her to tell you that it's okay to send her a text or send this guy a text. So what are you really looking for? You're not looking for her advice because you already know what you want to do. You're looking for permission. And this is one of the most powerful things I can teach the women that I work with. And that is, you can give your own self, your own permission to do what feels good for you in a relationship or when you're dating a guy and first getting to know him. So this is a very basic permission statement that I wrote, kind of themed on this webinar, but you can kind of play with this and use it however feels good for you. And just to give credit where credit is due, the permission statement comes from my own coach, Hillary Rubin. So I just want to give her a little bit of a shout out because this has helped me so much, and I use it in my business and also my personal life every day. I mean, I have a couple of permission statements that I say every single day. So everyone's on mute. I can't hear you. So say this to yourself, and I'll just be quiet for about 20 seconds. Just say it to yourself and just see what happens, see how it feels. And if you think it's silly or whatever, just trust me on this one. Like, I'm not particularly woo-woo. I'm pretty grounded in what help and advice I give people, but this is a pretty powerful thing if you do it right. And if you have any questions, of course, please feel free to put them in the chat box, or any insights or anything that came up for you during the permission statement. Cool. All right, and again, I'm a little bit ahead of you. There is a delay, so I'm going to keep going just so we're not spending too much time me just waiting around. But if you do want to share something, then please go ahead and do that. You can send it into a chat box. And also, I just want to say, if you ever do want to share something with me privately, even during the webinar, you can do it at hello@veronicagrant.com. I am periodically checking in there just to see what else is going on. Okay. Finally. All right. The 3 mindset traps that I find most women get trapped into, myself included. And it's not really even a women thing. A lot of people get trapped into this. So this is the first thing. And this is so common, and it's the all or nothing mindset. Now, I have no problem with online dating. Actually, I think online dating is a fabulous thing and a fantastic way to meet potential new partners. However, online dating has perpetuated this mindset trap. So you just have to be careful and watch yourself if you are doing online dating. So the mindset trap is literally turning dating on and off like it's a faucet. And you might think, well, what's the problem? Like, I date sometimes, I don't date sometimes. But here's what happens. So, okay, let's say you're on. So you're dating now, you're in dating mindset. You have like your little horse things on, like the horse guard. So that's all you're thinking about. So you log on to OkCupid or Tinder or whatever it is, and you browse tons of profiles, you message tons of guys, you schedule tons of dates, maybe multiple dates a week. Maybe I've even had clients multiple dates a day. I mean, it's really insane. So, and after a few weeks of this, by even the midpoint in your on period, you're exhausted, you're depleted, and the dates just start not going well because you are so drained, and it makes you jaded by so many unsuccessful dates. And you might have squeezed, a second or a third date from some of these dates, but none of them turn into a successful relationship or even any type of long-term relationship. So you pull a complete 180, and this is when you turn dating off. You don't log into any dating sites. You even might show zero interest when you meet a potential partner, potential great match in person. So if you're like out at a bar and you're like, I'm not dating, then you may miss out on great potential men there. And you might even turn into a hermit. And you might, and notice if you've said this before, I'm going to work on myself. Now, I'm in the self-development. I have no problem with women working on themselves. But a lot of times when we say that we're going to work on themselves, it really turns, and you might say something like, well, I'm just going to focus on my career, or I'm going to sign up and train for a marathon, or I'm going to, maybe I'm just going to relax and just spend a few nights in, have some Netflix binges, all these things. And none of those things are bad in itself. I mean, focusing on your career, doing what you need to do, marathons, Netflix, these are all great things. And I love all of these things. The problem is when we're in this off mode and we're in this mode of going to work on myself, it really isn't working on yourself. You're actually just numbing the pain, like numbing your frustration with dating. You're hiding behind something so you don't have to go on dates, and you're filling a void essentially. And so the all or nothing mindset trap kind of keeps you in this cycle of dating being exhausting, not sustainable, and essentially doesn't really feel authentic because all the dates just feel like job interviews, to a cycle of being a complete hermit and hiding and filling a void. So if you pull out your worksheet and you can follow along on the slides or the worksheet or a little bit of both, there's some space where you can write out what I call a hilariously small goal. So the best way to break out of a all or nothing mindset is to come up with some sort of hilariously small goal. So what is a hilariously small goal? A hilariously small goal is a goal that is easily attainable. And it's like so attainable, it's so small that the effort is almost hilarious to you. So if you've been in the on and off mindset for a while, you might even just say, okay, I'm going to have one date every other month, or I'm going to schedule one date once a month, or whatever it is. The point is that it's sustainable and that it's something that you can do while also attending to and maintaining all the other important things in your life. So your own self-care, your job, your friends, your family, whatever else that you have to attend to, you're able to do that and also still date, even if it's at this, what I call hilariously small goal. And then here's one of two things can go, usually happen after you build this goal and you've been, and it's been working for you for a little bit. Either A, you get to a point where like, okay, I've been doing a date every other month. It's been super easy for me. I've met some guys, but nothing that's come of anything. So I want to step it up. So now I'm going to do one date a month. And so you build from there. So then maybe you build to 2 dates a month, and then maybe you do once a week. And that's like the most that I ever recommend is 1 date a week. And so it just builds from there to something that's sustainable. The other thing that happens is maybe you just start off the bat saying, I'm going to do 1 date a month. And what happens is over time that builds up. So you've actually given yourself 12 really real and authentic opportunities to create an amazing connection with a potential new partner. So see this 2 mindsets. It's either you just build from there, or 2, that you've created a space where you actually can go on these really high quality dates. So you kind of built this arsenal of good dates, and who knows, maybe one of those dates will actually turn into something. So you don't have to worry about, when to schedule dates in this on and off mindset. So that's mindset trap number 1. I hope that's clear. I'm going to go through all of the mindset traps and then hop over to the chat box. I can't see the chat box from my screen now. So just type it in, or again, you can email me at hello@veronicagrant.com and send me a question there as well. Okay, so mindset trap number 2 is you believe your limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs are beliefs that we have that are usually related to our self and identity. And they may be based somewhat on fact or your past experiences. They're generally not true. But because we believe them and we believe them to be our reality, we develop our actions around them. So for example, here's some example of some limiting beliefs, and there's some on your screen. And I'm sure probably all of you have said something along these lines before, because I know I certainly have too. Like, this city sucks for dating. There are no good men. I've tried all the dating sites. At my age, only divorcees are left. Anyone still single at my age is a red flag in itself. Excuse me, I have to focus on my career. I intimidate men. I'm too successful, make too much money, all of these things. So I'd love for you to write in the chat box or write in your worksheet, like, what is one limiting belief that you have? So what is something that you've said about dating or relationships that is probably not true, but it definitely has been defining how you date? All right. Cool. So yeah, just take a few more seconds, couple seconds, and just write it down. Yeah, and then whenever I'm working with a client and they say, oh, well, I intimidate men because I'm too successful or I make too much money, the first thing I always ask them, and this is in your worksheet, it'll be in your worksheet in a moment. I say, is that true? Is it true that you intimidate men because you're too successful or make too much money? And they say, yeah, it's true. And I say, okay, is it true all the time? Is it absolutely true? Is it 100% true that you intimidate men and that is why you are still single, because you make too much money or too successful? And they say, well, I guess it's not true all the time. I mean, I don't know. I guess nothing's true all the time. Like, exactly, nothing is true all the time. So my next question is, what would you, and this is in your worksheet, so really think about this one. What would you do differently if you didn't believe this thought? So if you didn't believe that you intimidate men because you're too successful or make too much money, what would you do differently? How would you carry yourself differently? How would you approach a first date? How would you approach a guy on your dating app that you want to message? Just what would you do differently? And then start doing that and see what happens. See how your reality shifts. Our beliefs create our reality, but we can change our beliefs, and therefore we can change our reality. And most of the time, our beliefs are not true. All right, so that was mindset trap number 2. You believe your limiting beliefs. And we all have limiting beliefs. I just want to say this. So if you have it, you're not a bad person. You're not a less in touch or a less smart person. It's something we all do. And in some ways, we're actually taught to do that. And kind of the way that we're raised and educated, we're taught to actually kind of perpetuate that cycle of believing our limiting beliefs. Okay. All right. Oh, those are the questions that I asked. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? What would you do if you didn't believe that thought? Okay. The third mindset trap is that you don't get help. We don't get help. So most of the people in my community are very smart, confident, goal-oriented, career-oriented women. We've got great education, maybe have advanced degrees, maybe even shattered a few glass ceilings on the way. And everything's going pretty well right now, except you're just missing this one piece of your life. And I totally get that. And then on top of all of that, a lot of your other friends are married or in committed relationships, and they seem to have been able to do that on their own without help? And since you're smart, why would you need any help? So I think this is a really interesting question. And I just want to say quickly, I am a coach, and I put my money where my mouth is. Excuse me, quite literally. Every time I've made a big personal or business decision, or made some sort of big personal or business change, I've always hired a coach to help me through it. And here's why. Because a coach or a friend or a family member, they can help see your blind spots. They can pick you up when you're down. They can just be someone that can listen to you without necessarily giving you advice. And this is just a really important thing, obviously, to have in our life. And here's the other reason why we don't ask for help. And I think this might actually hit home with a lot of you, because it certainly does hit home for me, especially before I started reaching out for help, just for some, working on my business, and also for some personal issues. But so we're all successful, we're smart, we're independent, self-sufficient, all these things. And we got to be that way because we knew exactly what we needed to do in order to succeed, in order to get ahead, or in order to get what we wanted. And so essentially what that means is that we have control because we know exactly what to do. But when you admit to yourself, or maybe to someone else, that you don't know what to do, then you're admitting that you don't have control, or you're essentially releasing control. And that's not really easy for you. And I mean, it's certainly easy for me. And that's just being really vulnerable. And vulnerability does not come easy for you. And it's kind of ironic, because being vulnerable is a really essential part to getting into a deep and committed relationship. So just like asking for help, or seeking help, and just being on this webinar, to be honest, is a really vulnerable action in itself, because it's admitting, like, yeah, I do have some mindset issues when it comes to dating. I don't know how to release old boyfriends or thoughts or beliefs or whatever. So you're being vulnerable in itself. So by showing up. So give yourself a pat on the back. Tell yourself you're doing a good job, that you are getting support. And so in your worksheet or in your journal, whatever you're writing on, just come up with a few ways, like, where can you get support? What can you do to reach out for help? How can you show a little vulnerability in this area? All right. I'm just going to take a quick pause before we move on. Okay. All right, so just a quick recap. The 3 mindset traps that I find a lot of women fall into are let's see, we don't ask for help. We are in the all or nothing mindset, and I'm having a complete brain meltdown. Oh, and we believe our limiting beliefs. All right, so now this is really the meat and potatoes. This was just kind of like seeing, okay, yeah, I can get that, clearing some of the way for what we're really going to do, which is the 7-step process to release old boyfriends, beliefs, and patterns. All right, so the first step to release old boyfriends and patterns, and actually let me just back up for a second, because I want to talk about it without getting into the steps. So to be perfectly frank, I created this 7-step process specifically for releasing ex-boyfriends that did something wrong to you. So you feel betrayed or wrong. So if a boyfriend cheated on you, if they just did something else that was horrible, just anytime you felt like you were betrayed. So this is really what this 7-step process is about. But you can absolutely use it for, just more of a mutual breakup with a boyfriend and someone that you're trying to release and move past. And you could also certainly use it to break up your relationship with old beliefs and patterns. So, and a couple other things about this 7-step process. Some of these steps, like, okay, I'm going to go over this, and it's going to take me probably just a few minutes to explain each step, but to actually do each step and to really embody each step, it's going to take a lot longer than that. And some of the steps might even take weeks if you really get into it. So just be sure that you just write the steps down, and you can re-listen to this webinar. It's going to be up through Sunday evening, or perhaps Monday evening because of the long weekend. So it's going to be up for a little bit. So you might even want to come back and replay so you can get even more out of the 7 steps. Because this process really is longer than, the 15 minutes that it's going to take me to explain it. All right, so let's get going. So step number 1, put aside the need to be right or to understand. And just one thing, sorry, I forgot. I knew there's something else I wanted to say. As I go through these 7 steps, pick one thing that you're going to use just for this example as I move through. So maybe it's releasing an old boyfriend. Maybe it's releasing your attachment or your relationship with the idea that you intimidate men because you're too successful or make too much money, whatever it is. So so just pick one thing, and you can use your worksheet to write through the answers as I go through this. And again, you can print out or save that worksheet to your computer so you can go through this even deeper, because I'm going to move through relatively quickly so I don't go on too long. So step number 1 to release old boyfriends, beliefs, patterns, thoughts, whatever, is put aside the need to be right or to understand. So even if you were wronged in a relationship, even if you think I'm a bunch of crazy talk about how it's not true that you intimidate men because you're too successful or too smart or make too much money, whatever it is. So even if you think I'm a crazy person and you just need to tell me that I'm wrong and that you're right, whatever it is, just put all that aside, release your need to be right or to understand it in this relationship. So especially when you're coming off a breakup, I know for me, I always wanted to know why. I wanted to know why it didn't work, why he cheated, why he fell out of love, why it just ended, especially if it just was kind of a sudden thing. But here's the thing. You don't actually need this information for closure. Your ego needs to know the answers or this information for closure, but you do not need to know this information for closure. And honestly, trying to figure it out is only going to result in more pain and frustration. So let this be good news that you don't need answers from him, or you don't really need to understand why. You don't really need to understand whether or not something is actually true to release it. You just get to let it go. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2 is allow yourself to feel. And this is something that the women in my community are not good at, myself included. So we want to think. We want to analyze the relationship. What went wrong? Where did it start going wrong? Should I have done this? Should I have said this? I mean, you can drive yourself freaking crazy. You can think about it all day long, and I promise you, you will be able to convince yourself of anything if you think about it for too much. So instead of thinking, allow yourself to feel. Okay. And this is when you want to go on a rebound. But if you skip this step and just kind of push it down and just go out there and on Tinder and find a rebound, you're putting yourself at a really high risk to repeat your relationship cycles. So allow yourself to be sad or hurt or angry or whatever it is. So cry, hit a pillow, talk it out. But a couple things. This isn't a pity party. And it's not an opportunity to bash him. You're just simply mourning the relationship. So it's nothing about him. It's more of just being sad about the end of the relationship and just simply mourning it. All right. Step 3. Look for the lessons in this experience. So this is your first opportunity in this process for amazing growth. Challenges are where we learn so that in your next relationship, you don't repeat this same cycle. And this is probably one of the more difficult steps, but what I'm going to ask you to do is to look at the breakup, or, this again applies to if you're breaking up with an old thought pattern or belief, but look at that relationship and the breakup as a fly on the wall. Try to look at it as objectively as possible. I mean, as objectively as possible. It's not going to be completely, because you're still part of the experience, but see if you can look at what he did, but also be willing to look at what you did and see your role in the situation. What could you have done differently? Now, let me tell you just a quick story about this. So if you read the email that I sent on Sunday, you'll know that I was chatting with an old girlfriend on over the weekend, and she was telling me about a relationship that had just ended. The guy had cheated on her, and she was basically going through this process. And I said, okay, so what can you learn from this relationship? What could you have done differently? Were you the enabler in any way for him to cheat on you? And she was immediately like, no, he cheated on me. I didn't do anything. And I said, okay, well, tell me this. Was there ever a time in the relationship where you didn't listen to your intuition? And she was like, well, when we first started dating, I got this feeling that he wasn't the one for me. But I stuck with him because we had fun and nothing seemed to be really terribly wrong with the relationship. It just was easy and it was fun. So I just kept dating him, even though I had this feeling that he really wasn't the one for me. And I'm like, yeah, so that was existence and that was in existence in the relationship. So and so it's not saying that of course he's going to cheat on you, but of course there's not going to be that love that I think both her and her ex-boyfriend want in a relationship. So now she knows, like, this has given her the ability to really trust her intuition, that her intuition really does know best. So ask yourself, what could you have done differently in this relationship? What was your role? What were you doing? What were you not doing? And let me be clear, this is not to be hard on yourself and is not to pick out every mistake that you make. You're human. You are never not going to make mistakes. So we need to get over that. You're going to make mistakes. The point of this exercise is to figure out what mistakes you made so that hopefully in the future you don't make those mistakes and that there are opportunities for growth. And then this leads right into step 4. And step 4 is move to compassion. So you're finding compassion both for him and both for yourself. Look, you are doing the best you could. And it is not fair to you to compare the knowledge that you have now, all the analyzing that you've done, all the different perspectives that you've looked at your relationship through. It is not fair to compare what you know now to what you knew then. Okay, so you were doing the best that you could with the information that you were operating under. And then here's the other thing. You want to find compassion for the ex-boyfriend or for the thought pattern, the belief. Okay, especially if you were betrayed or mistreated in any way. He was doing the best that he could with his inner resources that he had. And this isn't meaning you have to like it, agree with it, condone it, or think it was right, or any of those things. But I like to tell people my clients to think of it this way. So all of the relationships we have with others in our lives, so whether romantic or friends, family, whatever, they're always reflections of the relationship that we have with ourselves. So imagine if he's treating you like this, imagine how he treats himself on the inside. It came from a place of his own pain. So if I were to put it another way, it's just feel sorry for the guy. Just have some compassion for him. Like, wow, he must be hurting inside so much if he can find it in him to cheat on me or to do whatever he did to me. And then if you're moving away from a thought pattern or belief, have compassion for yourself, because again, you were raised to believe a certain thing, either because of what Hollywood told you or your mom told you or what your roommate or your sister or your friend told you, whatever it is. So find compassion for yourself. You were operating under the knowledge that you had. So you were doing the best that you could. And this slides right into step 5, which is once you find compassion for yourself and for him, then you can forgive. You were doing the best you could with the inner resources you had, and you made mistakes. Maybe you didn't listen to your intuition. Maybe you let yourself go in the relationship. Maybe you were playing the victim card for years and haven't been dating like my client was. Maybe you pushed him away. Whatever it is, forgive yourself and be easy on yourself. And this is a question that I have on the worksheet. But let this be your filter. If you truly and deeply loved yourself, what would you do? What would you tell yourself right now? And I'll say that again. If you truly and deeply loved yourself, what would you do? What would you tell yourself right now? So imagine you were talking to a friend who was going through this process that you're going through. Would you say, you really should have done XYZ and you probably should have said ABC, and I don't know why you did this. I mean, that was really dumb. And like, what were you thinking? I mean, no, you would not talk to your friend like that. So there's no reason that you should be talking to yourself like that. Okay, so write that down. Write what you would say to yourself. What would you do in this situation for yourself if you truly and deeply loved yourself? All right. And then finally, once we find compassion and we've forgiven ourselves and the other person, we're going to give it all back to the universe, God, or another higher power, just depending on your, religious practice or religious beliefs. And this is a really powerful step. And I usually don't teach, I teach very tangible, grounded tools and exercises that you can physically do or see or feel. And this one, is a little more difficult because I can't really tell you how to give it all back to the universe, God, or another higher power. But I think this is a really, really important step. And it's just going to be something that you're going to kind of have to feel through. And of course, reach out to for support from me if you need more support with this step, because it is really challenging. But what this step does and why it's so important is it releases any type of payback or I'll show him mentality or trying to teach him a lesson or whatever it is. Because here's what that does. When you have this type of negative mentality, like, oh, I'll show him, I'm going to teach him a lesson, it creates negativity in you. And this is not what you want in your next relationship. If you put negativity out into the universe, that's exactly what you're going to get back. And essentially, you create self-fulfilling prophecies, puts you in victim mode. It sets you up to repeat this relationship pattern. So if you've been dating the same wrong guy again and again and again, you might want to look definitely into this step, into just giving it all back to the universe, God, or another higher power. And here's the other thing. Whatever lessons your ex learns from his mistakes, or maybe he doesn't even learn lessons at all because he's not as emotionally and consciously as evolved as you are. But whatever he learns or doesn't learn, it has nothing to do with you. That is between him and his higher power. It is not your responsibility to do anything about it, to teach him a lesson. You just got to let it go. It's between him and his higher power. And this comes back into step 6 now, because now you're going to set him free and set the relationship free. And once you've completed this step, you finally have moved into a place where you're really ready to receive love. And I really encourage my clients, especially when they come to me after a recent breakup, before we even talk about Tinder or OkCupid or whatever, I take them through this process, because if they don't get to step 7, they are almost certainly going to start repeating relationship patterns and cycles, and dating is going to feel icky and gross and not fun. So I have a really wonderful writing exercise that really helps to set the relationship and set him free if you're releasing an ex-boyfriend. And it goes like this. Dear name, I'm saying goodbye because I learned, I forgive you for, I forgive myself for. And you're not actually sending this letter, so I just want to make that clear. You are going to write this letter, and then you're going to burn it, tear it up, throw it away, do whatever you need to do, or you're just going to destroy it. And here's just, a really quick example of, how this might be helpful. So I'll just use my friend's situation as an example. So, dear ex-boyfriend, I'm saying goodbye because I finally realized that the relationship is over. You cheated on me, and I deserve better. I learned that my intuition knows best, and I learned that my intuition has the ability to tell me the truth. I forgive you for cheating on me, and I forgive myself for staying in the relationship well beyond the time that my intuition told me to leave. And I thank you for giving me this realization, because now I have this gift of trusting my intuition for the rest of my life. Okay, that's just an example. But you can just see how you've totally released it. You've set the relationship free, you set him free, and you're ready to move on. All right, so we've done a lot. I have a bad habit of cramming way too much into webinars, but that's okay, because I just get too excited about all the stuff I want to talk about. So just take a moment and close your eyes and take a couple of breaths. Just let all this digest. You're going to review this. You have the steps. You have the questions to ask yourself. You have all the tools that you need. And so now you just need to schedule some time into your calendar to actually work through these this process. And then with your eyes closed, breathing softly, really ask yourself, is holding on to the past working for me? Is staying mad at my ex working for me, or staying attached, whatever it is? Do my limiting beliefs serve me? Does believing that all men my age who are still single is a red flag in itself, does that serve me? Are these mindset traps working for me? And on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me, and you can, again, tell me in the chat box, or just write it down, or just think of a number, or even email it to me at hello@veronicagrant.com. But on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me, how willing are you to let go of these expectations and beliefs? 1 being really not willing, and 10 being really willing. How willing are you to move forward, to let go of old boyfriends, old patterns, old thoughts, old dating rules that don't even apply anymore? And then imagine being able to meet the love of your life in line at the coffee shop, or maybe sitting on the plane going home. And imagine talking to a man on a date, whether or not he's going to end up being the love of your life or whatever, but just imagine feeling grounded, it being authentic, letting go of thoughts and beliefs and people that don't serve you. And imagine being able to effortlessly let go of guys that aren't right for you, and you're not just staying because it works or because he seems like he should be good on paper. And imagine finally letting your ex go for good. And imagine dating a guy that you're actually interested in, and being able to express what you need and want in a relationship with confidence. Yeah. And then just open your eyes and just notice what's different, how you feel differently, anything's shifted. And so what I do is I help women treat themselves the way they want to be treated, so that they can have the relationship that they both desire and that they deserve. And so I'm just asking you, where are you feeling right now in dating? Is it fun for you, or do you feel kind of stuck? Does it feel icky? Does it feel just kind of gross and authentic, like job interviews? And I'm just wondering, from the information that you got in this webinar, do you know what your next best action steps are? Are you aware of what patterns that you keep repeating? Where are your energy leaks? Where are you draining energy? What's tripping you up? What's preventing you from being open to meeting the right guy for you? And so any of these questions relate to you, then please do yourself a favor and scroll to the bottom of the screen, and you're going to see my scheduler there, and that is to schedule a 30-minute dating clarity call with me. And I'm opening up a limited number of spots where you can sign up to chat with me for half an hour, totally free, where I can help you answer some of these questions. We can go deeper, into your own personal individual situation, to figure out, the 7 steps or the 3 mindset blocks that I talked about. And I'll be able to help you figure out where you're getting stuck, why you're repeating these patterns, why dating is icky for you, why relationships haven't been working for you. So if you just scroll and I think you can set the time zone that you're in and then click set time zone, and that should walk you through pretty easily through the calendar and all that stuff to get scheduled. And this goes right into my calendar. So it's super simple and easy and pretty seamless. And if you schedule yourself before the end of the night, I'll also send you a recording that I have around forgiveness and relationships. This will be a really, really nice complement to doing steps 1 through 7, the 7 steps to release old boyfriends, beliefs, and patterns. This will just be a really nice complement to that. So I'll send you that free meditation if you schedule this call with me tonight. And I'm only opening up 10 slots. So the slots are limited, and there is way more than 10 people signed up for this webinar. So be sure you grab that early while you can. And if for some reason the scheduler is not working, you can go to bit.ly, so bit.ly/dating clarity, and you can schedule yourself really quickly and easily right into my calendar. And so you might be thinking, well, 30 minutes doesn't seem that long. Like, what the heck can she figure out in 30 minutes? But I have spent hours really fine-tuning my questions so I can figure out exactly what's blocking you pretty quickly. Some of the questions I ask you may have never been asked before in your life and might even throw you off a little bit, but then you realize how deep and how much information that it actually holds. And so with these questions, I'll really quickly be able to tell you what's holding you back and what your next best steps are. And I'll also admit I have a little bit of a sixth sense when it comes to this. I can sense blocks in just a couple of minutes. And so I always tell people, bring me your hardest situation and let me dissect it. So I don't care if you think you're just in a crazy, unique situation. I'm sure I can still dissect it and find some blocks for you. And I probably have heard similar situations from other women as well. And so just to put a little bit of proof in the pudding, I just want to share some quotes that I've gotten from women after our call. So here's one, and I don't have her name, but this is my client, Nafisha in North Carolina. So she says, I have a job that requires a lot of time, making it hard to find time to date. Veronica helped me to simplify, making dating more fun and natural. I've become more aware of my own needs, and it made me realize I haven't treated myself well the past few years. I've just focused on working and everyday tasks. It was empowering to do more for myself and to get out of the hustle and bustle. And then this is another client who's actually local to me. She's in Dallas. This is what she says. I was seeing a counselor last year who, despite her master's in counseling and experience, did not give me the tools I needed. Our first few minutes of our conversation has been more helpful than all of my therapy. So if you're wondering about coaching versus therapy, I can answer that question as well. Just type it into the chat box. And then here's another one. This is also a local Dallas client. I usually have no problem attracting men. So can you relate to that? I know that was my part of my story. I struggle with keeping their attention and having it turn into something. Thanks to Veronica, I've learned a lot of ways I may have been blocking men from getting in, and I had no idea I was doing it. And then here's the final one, another client from North Carolina. I have a tendency to date losers who have no money, motivation, self-control, or life skills and end up taking care of them in some way. One of the most powerful outcomes I got was that it opened up a dialogue between my friends and me about why we settle for the losers, try to change them, and why we let ourselves take responsibility for their feelings. I'll never apologize to a man just for being myself. Cool. So, all right. Ton of stuff going on here tonight, ladies. There might be a few men on this call. I'm not exactly sure. But if I don't see any questions in the chat box, so I'll hang around for another minute or so, type in your questions, and scroll to the bottom of the screen again, and you have to just use the drop box, pick your time zone, and set time zone. Then it should be pretty self-explanatory. You just click the date and the time, and there's a couple of questions to answer, and that is it. And if I don't see any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and close out this call. And if you have any other insight or questions, then please go ahead and email me at hello@veronicagrant.com. And just a reminder, if you schedule a call with me before the end of the evening, I will also send you my forgiveness meditation, which will be a really wonderful complement to the 7 steps to releasing old boyfriends, thoughts, patterns, and beliefs. All right, I'm not seeing anything come through, so I am going to sign off. We can go watch the State of the Union, not being too late. So if you're in the US, I know we had some international folks. So if you're in the US, let's all go be good citizens and well, just have a wonderful rest of your evening. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hope to talk to you soon.